something we all think about, plan for, sometimes even worry over. But beyond the numbers, charts, and spreadsheets, there's a deeper story. One about mindset, belief systems, and the way our past experiences shape our relationship with wealth. Now, too often, financial conversations focus only on the mechanics: save, invest, retire. But what about the psychological success or the psychology behind those decisions? What about the fear, the narratives, and the silent rules we inherit about money? Welcome back, listeners, to this episode of the BizBlend podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and today I'm honored to sit with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors.
Sana, it's great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake. And listeners, let me introduce a bit about Jake with all of you. With over 2 decades of experience guiding individuals and families through the complexities of financial planning, Jake is not just about numbers. He's about people, purpose, and the mindset shifts that turn financial planning into financial freedom. And this episode isn't about quick wins or overnight wealth. It's about unpacking how money, mindset, and momentum work together to shape the lives we build. So, Jake, once again, welcome to the show.
Excited to speak with you today about a powerful subject.
Absolutely, Jake. Absolutely. Um, so, Jake, you have said that money is as much emotional as it is practical. So, what are some of the most common psychological roadblocks you see people facing when it comes to building wealth?
Yeah, I think that people need to really revisit their conditioned mindset when it comes to money. Many of us have a relationship with money and we don't even think about that or ever spend time visiting that. And most of the time it starts with our parents and the way that they educated us about money. Maybe our parents were frugal, maybe they were in debt, maybe they spent too much money. But that's where we were formed our opinions. And as we age and get older and go through adulthood and prepare for our own financial freedom and retirement, sometimes we have some baggage there, Sana, and we've got to unpack that so that we can make good decisions that are based on our values and our relationship with money. So I think that's the place people go wrong is that they are conditioned in a way that might not work for them.
Hmm. No, I think that's a very healthy approach to look at it because many of our listeners will relate here because no matter how much we know better, um, sometimes these old money stories or this conditioned behavior, especially the reactions that we without even being aware we have to those specific events. I think they're so much influenced by our subconscious experiences, and it's really powerful to hear how reframing them can open new possibilities.
Right. Like, let me ask you a question, Sana, since you're used to interviewing guests, but do you remember your first memory of money?
Oh my goodness. I remember the time when I got my first salary actually, and what I did with that.
Yeah.
Yes, that
What'd you do
was.
with it?
Oh, so I obviously I bought gifts for my parents. That
Oh,
was the thing I did. Yeah. And yeah, I did save some of my money in my, piggy bank, because my parents, especially my father, has always been, very particular about teaching me how to save money, and kind of, that though there are so many, different ways, but then subconsciously, I would always trust whatever my father will tell me. This is the safest way because I've seen him saving the money, so it's tested, like done and
yeah.
dusted. That's what I would do with that.
That's very good. Very thank you. Yeah. So these are the types of questions that I ask my clients and I love talking about. I've got a story to share of myself. So
Yeah.
Being living in America and growing up in America, 4th of July is typically a very celebrated holiday, especially for children, because you get the firecrackers and the barbecues, and it's
Yeah.
typically in the summer, so no kids are in school. And I remember at a very young age, my father telling me, "You might as well take a $20 bill and just light it on fire." Because he said, "That's what you're doing when you spend your allowance on fireworks." And, that stuck with me all these years, and, to this day, I still don't spend a lot of money on fireworks because I remember that story. I enjoy a good fireworks display, but I'm not spending hundreds or certainly not thousands of dollars on fireworks because of that early lesson. So at the time, it might have been frustrating as a kid, but interesting enough that, one of those money lessons kinda stuck with me, and it's worked out well for me, but, now would I be rich or poor based on what I spent on fireworks? Probably not, but I think it's interesting to hear these stories because I think we all have money stories in our childhood that stick in our brain, and I think that's where you need to start when you're thinking about the psychology of money and the psychology of success. So that's good. That's why I wanted to bring that up, and thank you for sharing with me.
That's really wonderful, Jake. That's really wonderful. I mean, uh, this the story that you shared about, instead of exactly lighting the $20 bill on fire, and that makes a lot of sense now when we grow up and we learn the actual value of money. Um, and at that time we then understand, oh my goodness, that's what my dad meant, or that's what that friend meant, or maybe someone who would give you a good financial advice in your childhood. I mean, that's a really a gift. It should be a gift because
Yeah.
not many of us get that, I think not many of us get that exposure to um mentorship or lessons about money. And I think that's that is so much important, especially for kids.
Yes, yes, agreed. Yep.
um Now moving on, Jake, um as you mentioned about all these conditioning, um how do you help clients reframe these beliefs so they don't sabotage their long-term success? Everybody has different way of getting conditioned. They have seen different situations. Somebody would have seen a lot of struggle and then built wealth around it. So sometimes these changes would be like would look like detrimental to them. So how do you reframe, or how do you navigate through such kind of scenarios?
Yeah, it's a great question, and thank you for asking. So,
Mhm.
the first is to bring it up like we kind of did, and then we wanna have a conversation about awareness and about, do we believe that those truths at the time still hold weight? And I'll give you an example. So,
Mhm.
baby boomers right now, the generation of baby boomers are the ones retiring in waves every year. And the
Mhm.
reality is, though, if you think about it, baby boomers don't really have any real retirement role models because
Mm.
sadly, their parents' generation's life expectancy was shorter. Their parents' generation typically received a pension from their job, which are no longer really as prevalent. And
Mhm.
so they had a very different relationship with money versus the baby boomers had to save in a 401k plan as a relatively new retirement account. And now they have to manage this nest egg. They can be two, three, five, $10 million, whatever it is, but it's a completely different dynamic than their parents who may have gotten 5,000, $3,000 a month pension and social security and had no 401k. So I like to start so I like to hear about relationship with money, money rules, why money's important to them, but then I talk about like, look, you might be the first person in your family to have to manage money this way. So those rules that applied to you when you were a kid may no longer be relevant because the world and your situation is drastically different than your parents. And so that's kind of but it's all about education and awareness. This is very important. It's very difficult, but that's where we try to start awareness and then education.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And as you mentioned about retiring, on this your book, Retiring Right, it highlights the emotional side of retirement. And now there has been a pivotal shift, especially in millennials and even Gen Zs are talking about it, that nobody wants to slog till their 60s or 70s. People are actually preparing for early retirement, or maybe they would like to do something which they love, instead of just going through the mundane, the humdrum of waking up, going for work, then coming back, or just worrying over your retirement fund. So in your experience, Jake, why do people struggle most with this transition, even if um, they are actually financially secure?
Because you're right, it's a purpose reset, and it's scary, and I think they struggle with you're right, more people I feel like want to retire early, but I don't think a lot of them know why or what they're going to retire to, and so I think people struggle because they wanna make sure that they can sustain their lifestyle as part of it, so the money equation is very important, but then the second, it's the purpose, it's what are you gonna wake up and do at Tuesday at 10 a.m. if you retire at 55 years old and all of your friends and coworkers are still working, right? They have a job, they go to their work, and you don't.
Mhm.
It can be very lonely, it can be
Yeah.
scary, it can be boring, and so that's another critical point, and thank you for bringing up my book, is that I address that in my book in the very beginning, is that you've gotta check in with your purpose, and you've gotta what I typically like to do is I love for my clients to make a list of all of their values. So use ChatGPT or whatever you wanna use, an AI generator to list out all the value words, hot words out there, integrity, discipline, whatever it is, and start to circle or think about which words resonate with you, and then start to create these own custom mission statements of what your purpose is and what's important to you, and the good news is your purpose can change as your life changes. So I would encourage people to do this at any phase in their life and then maybe revisit every few years, but do this exercise, figure out what your purpose is and what's important to you, and ideally, you can align that while you're working, but if you can't, then it's even that much more to look forward to upon retirement. But Sonia, I think you've gotta again, it comes down to purpose and what you're striving for and what you're doing. I don't
Mhm.
believe as humans we were meant to just sit alone on our couch and watch TV all day. I don't think that's healthy, and I don't think that's what people should be doing in retirement.
Yeah, yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, same here. Personally, I wouldn't also want to do that when I retire. Not at all. Not at all. I would love to be, engaged, doing something that I am passionate about.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly. Do you have an age? Have you talked about when you wanna retire?
not yet. Not yet.
Yeah. See, so I'm 44 years old, and many of my clients retire in their 50s, but, for me, I'm very fortunate. I love what I do. I am engaged. I've got a great team around me that support me and our clients. So I see myself working till 70 right now at least, and so but again, as long as you're finding purpose and you're enjoying what you're doing, that's what matters, and that's what it boils down to. And what do you wanna trade your time doing, right? Do you wanna trade your time doing a job you hate? Well, then that's an issue that we've got to address. Or do you want to trade your time doing a job you love or volunteering or whatever that is? Engagement, like you said. Uh, but that's what coming into the success and the dynamics all play in.
Mm. Oh, I love that. Um, and another theme that you talk about often is momentum. Now, when someone is feeling financially stuck, um, what's the first small step you recommend to shift from that state of paralysis into progress?
Yeah. So when you're feeling stuck, the first thing is to realize that you're not the only one and you're not alone. That a lot of people feel that way, and inertia is a big problem with people's financial plans. That then taking no action is a decision. And oftentimes the wrong decision as far as when it comes to planning. I'm not talking about investing with that, but I think it's to take a step back and to zoom out and then try to educate yourself. I'm a big proponent of or for very big for financial literacy and education. And so whatever your favorite form of learning or education is, whether you like to read books, listen to podcasts like this, even if you're on Instagram or TikTok. Now, I wouldn't take advice from those platforms, but you can reformulate your feed into following people that talk about money, right? And again, I wouldn't take advice from social media because they don't know your personal situation. But whatever you can do when you're feeling stuck to start developing a habit of putting yourself in front of ways to enhance your literacy, I think is the first step. And then the next step would be not being shy about engaging with a financial advisor and seeking help and having some counsel and having a meeting and discussing these topics with someone who's educated and qualified to guide you along. But I think first step is set up your world around you to start educating yourself.
That is so true. That is so true. You never know what, surprising observation or some kind of, other better way to save your money or plan your expenses could, come around from those discussions with mentors or someone who has been there, done that. So yeah, that's so
Right.
important.
Yes.
Um, and now specifically, I'm just kind of uh narrowing down the focus here for entrepreneurs and professionals. Now, as entrepreneur, we're always chasing growth, scaling, um, increased profits, increased revenue, cash flow. Now, what's your take on risk taking, Jack? Especially now we are having so much of uncertainty economically, geopolitically. Everything is kind of very uncertain. Do you think is risk something to embrace or avoid or strategically calculate?
Right. It's got to be very calculated and you know, my clients who have set themselves up to be successful have not necessarily speculated, right, to do that. You hear about it in the news. It's basically like somebody winning the lottery. It doesn't happen that often. So speculation is speculation because it's rare that you will make money. And so what I like to make sure that we have set up first is that we build a financial plan. We determine what target rate of return your investments need to grow at in order for your financial plan to work. And then we build a portfolio and a saving strategy that's going to work towards that target and that goal. And then, and only then, with excess money, you can explore speculation. But me, even being in the financial services industry, I don't do much speculation because I know that may help my plan and it may hurt my plan, but my plan doesn't need it. So I think when someone has a financial plan, and they know what their investment rate of return needs to be, and they can build a portfolio to achieve that investment return, taking the least amount of risk possible. Again, there's no guarantees, but and then speculation. But again, I think once somebody does that work, they actually want to speculate less because they realize that, look, I don't need to, for all of my goals and my dreams and everything I need to come true, I just need to do X, Y, and Z, and it'll happen. Then the speculation becomes less sexy and less desired because they know that it's not necessary to get them what they want. Because I think money is a tool, right? And however you view it, why it's important to you, as long as you're using it in a way that works for you and your family, having more of it doesn't necessarily equate to success or happiness. So it's just another tool, right? And so it's like, let's use this tool to get what we want in our out of our lives and whatever that is, whatever that looks like. But so again, I'm not a big fan of speculation. There's room for it only after your financial plan is solid.
Ye- Exactly. You still have some amount of disposable income to kind of, put that into risk.
Sure, sure. And again, once you start, I'm telling you, once you start doing it, you'll probably be want to do it less. 'Cause you're like, "Why am I wasting my disposable income on something that may or may not come true when I could just put it towards my plan?"
Yeah. That's totally logical. That's totally logical, Jake.
Yeah.
And with this, I would also like to connect behavioral finance. Now um, expenses or transactions, they're driven by, different intangible factors. Um, I mean, we are seeing that shift, especially with the younger generation. So, do you have any daily money habits that you personally practice that blend psychology with practicality, and you would like to share with our listeners, Jake?
Of course, yes, and I think the key here is that you wanna get to a place where you can have what's called guilt-free spending, and I think that's a wonderful place to be, and so, it's actually to get there is a little backwards to what most people think, and so, what I do is I like to make sure that I do all of my savings and my debt obligations first, so, I think a lot of people, they get their paycheck and then they see what their bills are, and then maybe they see what they wanna buy, and then they think about their savings kind of last. I do all of that on the front end instead. So, retirement savings, health savings account, emergency savings, whatever that is, I make sure I've got that allocated for, and I know exactly how much I need to save each and every year according to my financial plan. And then, of course, I gotta cover my mortgage and any other debt obligations and bills, electric bill and water bill, etcetera. And then, though, this is what's exciting. Whatever is left over, whatever that dollar amount is, maybe it's $1,000 for someone, maybe it's 10,000, whatever it is, that's money you can spend guilt free and you can blow it on whatever the heck you want within reason and not worry about it. And the idea is that you have all of your other financial planning, investment, retirement, emergency, bills all covered. And so whatever falls to the bottom, you don't worry about what you buy. Maybe you do buy that fancy car or that nice dress or suit or go on a vacation, but you're not stressed about spending the money because everything else has already been accounted for. And you can't do that properly, in my opinion, until you have a financial plan and a strategy set up. So that's a big one for me. And then the second rule that I live by is that I spend a lot of money on things that I enjoy and I value. And I'm very, very cheap on things that I don't value, right? So and that's okay, right? And that's completely so, like, I play golf. I spend a lot of money on golf. I really enjoy it, right? But there may be other areas of my life I can't even think of, but there may be other areas, like, I don't buy a lot of, um like, I have 2 or 3 pairs of jeans, right? Maybe that's it. Maybe someone else should say I should have 5 or 6 pair, I don't know, but, like, I don't spend a lot of money on jeans because you know what? I don't wear a lot of jeans because I play golf and I don't golf in jeans. And so that's just something to think about is, get very clear about your cash flow and where the money's going so that you can spend guilt free and then enjoy with that money, enjoy and spend money on things that you like and be really cheap on things that aren't that important to you. Those would be my 2 takeaways on on my rules.
Yeah, that's so mindful. I think it's kind of the, reverse psychology that you're
Yeah.
applying. Mm. And then I really love that, because it's like you are prepared, and then, kind of after that preparation, you are being reckless, but
Yeah.
being intentionally reckless.
Yes. Which is such a fun way to live, isn't it? I mean, you hear about these financial gurus who are telling you, don't ever drink, don't ever pay for a cup of coffee or pay off your mortgage as fast as you can. These people that are doing that are miserable. If I had to guess, because I don't know many people that are doing that, but if they're saying you can't do anything till you pay off your house and you have to save every penny you make and those people are probably miserable. And so my point is, you don't have to go through life that way as long as you've got a solid financial plan, you review it regularly. There's more than one way to do this, and you don't have to budgeting doesn't have to be a four-letter word. It's not as bad as people think once you just set it up and be honest with yourself. And again, it all goes back to your purpose and your values and what's important to you. Maybe you have a deep faith and giving to your church is very important. Then you should build that into the cash flow. Who am I to say to do that or not, right? But for some people, maybe giving to their church is not as important, and that's so that can be okay for them too. So it's just getting real with yourself and being honest with yourself and determining what's important and what's not. And another quick thought on that is that you got to do this for yourself and for nobody else. I think a lot of people get caught up in the perception of how they spend money and what they do with their money, but you have to be clear. You don't want to spend money or buy things to impress people. and you don't wanna be
Mm,
cheap. You don't wanna be cheap to impress people, and so you gotta do it for yourself and what's important to you.
that's a brilliant advice, Jake.
Thank
I
you.
think it just really you know, like puts money forward not as a trap, but as a tool, as you
Yes.
uh, mentioned.
Yes.
Brilliant. So, Jake, of course, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and also get a hold of your book, Retiring Right, what would be the best way?
Yeah, I would say I'm actually most active on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is Jake_Falcon_CRPC. So follow along. If you've got questions for me, you can send me a direct message that way. And then my book's out there on Amazon. It's probably the easiest way to pick it up. Again, it's called Retiring Right: Smart Steps for Exiting Corporate America. I've got a hardback, paperback, and I actually recorded an audio version in New York City, which I'm real excited about. So, if you're a listener, because you're listening to podcasts, you can check out the audio version as well.
Super, super. That's huge, Jake. I'll make sure to have all the details in the show notes. And Jake, thank you so much for bringing your wisdom and candor to BizBlend. What I can take from this conversation is that money isn't really about dollars or whatever currency our listeners have, but it's about decisions. It is
Yeah.
the way our beliefs either limit us or launch us. So, thank you so much, Jake, for reminding today that financial freedom isn't just about retirement accounts, it's about clarity, momentum, and living with intention.
No, it's my pleasure. And that's a great summary. Thank you so much. It was fun talking with you.
Says Najik. Same here. And to all the listeners, thank you for devoting your time to tune into this podcast, into BizBlend. So, whether you are an entrepreneur taking risks, a professional planning for the future, or someone who is simply trying to shift from scarcity to abundance, you're not just building your wealth, you're shaping the story of your life. Until next time, keep blending your vision with your values and keep moving forward. And also keep listening to BizBlend with your host, Sana.